Good afternoon, Ryan. It's the middle of August here in Japan, and it is really hot and humid. So I'm in my bedroom with the AC on, trying to stay cool. So, Arizona has trees and agriculture. That's not something I immediately think of when I think of Arizona. Good to know. You mentioned that the non-native Arizonan population in Arizona is pretty high. After doing some fact checking, it looks like about 60% of Arizonans were not born in Arizona. Interesting. You also mentioned the large number of seniors in Arizona. Currently, Japan has a really impactful aging population crisis that the country is going through. So one question that you asked me was what it's like being half Asian in Asia. Well, I don't think anyone has mistaken me for being born in Japan or for being 100% Japanese while here in Japan. Just like I don't think anyone in Oregon has mistaken me for being completely Caucasian. To white people, I'm obviously not white because of my dark hair and distinguished features, but I also have a smaller face, more protruding nose, and facial hair, which make me not so Japanese looking. I think the big thing is my subtle mannerisms. You can clearly tell just by my body language during any interaction that I'm not Japanese, I'm not Asian. And usually I can spot an American from a half mile away because of things like being really loud or wearing a certain style of clothes. And it really becomes easier to distinguish different types of people, and it becomes more and more noticeable the more you live in different places. So it's been great getting to know Japanese culture and my Japanese family history, but even if I became fluent in Japanese, I could never really feel like I truly belong or fit in because, long answer short, I'm too used to my freedoms and Western cultural norms. And Japan is really strongly set in their ways on many social and cultural expectations that I just don't think I could ever fully get used to. So I think being half Asian in Asia honestly feels pretty much the same as I would feel in most other countries. If I were Nisei or second generation Japanese American, then it might be much more complex because then I would probably have a lot more values and lifestyle similarities of Japanese people. But I'm extremely American, for better or worse. I love that I'm hard to define in terms of my personality and my general identity. And I also love that I'm not so simply defined ethnically and racially. You also asked how well did school prepare me for my current career? I'd say adequately. That question's hard to answer. I'm honestly neutral towards that question since I don't have much else to compare it to. My master's program prepared me greatly since I was able to meet students and classmates from so many different countries, and I got to learn how to teach English. But the more impactful lessons I learned, I think, were from traveling abroad. Whereas public high school, that was more about assimilating to socio-cultural norms. So school in the US, that was fine. You also asked about strengths of Japanese or Asian school system that we could implement into the US. So I've only taught in a hagwon or a tutoring institution for an elementary school in Korea. And I've taught at an international university in Japan. Those are two pretty unique situations. So it's hard for me to claim a full understanding of the Asian school system. But foremost, it's necessary to understand that education is a dominant part of life for most families living in Asian cities. It's often the topic of conversation, much more so than sports or TV programs. Which university you attend says a lot about who you are and largely determines your career. Education is the key to social mobility, and there aren't just any other realistic avenues. Although being a student is incredibly stressful and time-consuming for most Asian students, I do appreciate how much time, energy, and resources are put into education as a society, and I love the idea of having hagwons or cram schools or tutors for many different subjects. They have tutors at private institutions, mostly for passing exams and learning English, but you can easily find tutors for math, art, science, and music, and they're for adults too. Plus, you can meet many students outside of your own school. I really like the idea of customizing your education. In theory, having the choice of classes to take and which teacher to receive lessons from is great. Overall, I think its cons currently outweigh the pros because it's creating further class divides and really stressed, depressed, and even suicidal students in Asia. But the number of unique classes available to those who can afford them seems beneficial, and personally, I would like to see more subject options in American schools. So that answers your questions. My question for you is about your family. So you're a family man now with a wife and 3 children, and I think you have a lot to be proud of, and I think you're successful in many ways. What are some indicators of success or goals that you have for your kids? If you can look 10 or 15 years from now, if your kids have blank or your kids are blank, what are some tangible or intangible things that will make it clear to you that yes, I did my job. As a parent, I did what I could to raise my kids the right way? Or is it more of a kind of win the day mentality with shorter goals and smaller developments that consume your parenting agenda? All right, I look forward to your answers. See you next time.